Ghosted in the Shell is the latest American adaptation of a Japanese anime, and is also the latest case in Hollywood whitewashing. The movie stars Scarlett Johansson as a woman whose body has been completely destroyed, but her brain is still intact. So they basically create a body for her to put the brain inside, hence the name of the title, Ghost in the Shell. She's given the name Major and is basically tasked to protect the city from criminals. But during one mission, she soon finds out about her dark past and whether or not everything was true or bullshit. Now, I've started a lot of reviews recently by saying, when I saw the trailer, blah, 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 blah. I'm gonna go further than that with this movie. When I first heard that this movie was announced and that Scarlett Johansson was gonna be cast in the lead role, I didn't know what to think about it. Couple reasons, because A, I've never really heard of Ghost in the Shell. Ghost in the Shell apparently is a very popular manga and anime from Japan, and I don't really watch that much anime. The closest I ever got to really watching anime was Pokemon. I've seen a handful of episodes of both Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z, but never really caught on. Anime is just not really for me, so I never really heard about Ghost in the Shell. And aside from that, I was also skeptical because Scarlett Johansson is cast in the lead role, and the show is traditionally Japanese, so I'll get back to that aspect a little later. But the third and the biggest red flag for me is that whenever America tries to make a live-action feature film adaptation of an anime, it goes horribly wrong. Like, if you take Dragon Ball Evolution, fucking terrible. Even adaptations of shows that are anime-esque go horribly wrong. Like The Last Airbender. If you look at Avatar The Last Airbender, sure, it's an American-made show, but it has an anime style to it, sometimes to a Miyazaki level, and M. Night Shyamalan just fucked that movie up to oblivion. So I went into Ghost in the Shell thinking it was going to be terrible, and to my surprise, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it's nothing great either, but it's definitely a million times better than you'd expect, especially if you compare it to Dragon Ball Evolution and The Last Airbender. The biggest strength for this movie is the visual look. This is a beautiful, beautiful looking movie. Obviously, it's trying to go for Blade Runner in terms of its look, but it's still an amazing movie to look at. Not only is the CG and the city amazing, the colors pop, the cinematography is gorgeous. It's shot in a way to where it pretty much passes as a live action anime, like an authentic live action anime, because they had the money to really go above and beyond when it comes to creating this world. And the sound is excellent as well, mainly with the score. There are a lot of scenes in this movie where the score just really intensifies the atmosphere, and in a way it helps make the city a character in itself. The other sound effects are really good as well. So in terms of visual and audio, this movie is excellent. Some of the action scenes are shot and edited in a very good way, and then other times it's like the Batman Begins scenario, where it's shot too close and heavily edited. So this movie absolutely excels in terms of the technical aspects. It's a great looking movie. It would be a perfect 3D movie, I think. I didn't see this movie in 3D, but I would imagine with the way it looks, it would look amazing in 3D. Everything else, on the other hand, is less than stellar. The story is kind of generic. When watching this movie, the first thing that popped into my mind was, oh, this is kind of like Japanese RoboCop in a way. I don't know if the source material Ghost in the Shell is the same way. I imagine it would be, but just judging it by this movie, I was like, wow, this is really like Blade Runner meets RoboCop. But the movie never really did anything to wow me. Like I said, as impressive as the visuals were, it's very reminiscent of Blade Runner. And I imagine that this movie is going to be overshadowed once Blade Runner 2049 comes out later this year. It's definitely impressive, but nothing special. The characters are just kind of stock. They're really more backgrounds, and they're not really that interesting. The one actor that really stood out for me was Takeshi Kitano, and part of that is because he's actually Japanese, the one Japanese actor in what is supposedly a Japanese property. He's probably my favorite actor in the movie, and even though he spends a lot of his time just kind of sitting around giving orders, because he plays Major's boss. He gets his time to shine. If you don't know who Takeshi Kitano is, he's well known for the outrage movies, Battle Royale, and in the mid to late 80s, he had a TV show called Takeshi's Castle, or if you live in America, it's better known as MXC, Most Extreme Elimination Challenge. I felt like doing that. That would be a great review for another time, but not talking about MXC, I'm talking about Ghost in the Shell. So he's the one actor that really fit this movie. Everyone else feels very out of place. I mean, they fill their roles fine. As for Scarlett Johansson, she does well with what she's given, but this leads into the biggest problem with the movie and the obvious elephant in the room: casting Scarlett Johansson in the lead role. Let me say this first of all. I get why they cast her in the role. It's not a good reason, but it's a valid reason. Ghost in the Shell is not very well known to people outside of the anime circle. I didn't even know what this property was until this movie got announced. So when you're making a big budget studio movie that costs $110 million, you don't really want to take a whole lot of risks. Yes, it would have been much better if they cast a Japanese actress in the role. A lot of people have said they should have cast Rinko Kikuchi in the role of Major, and if you don't know who she is, she's known for Babel and Pacific Rim. And the way Scarlett Johansson looks in this movie, you could have easily photoshopped Rinko Kikuchi's face, and you wouldn't have been able to tell the difference. It would have been seamless. I mean, sure, some people know who Rinko Kikuchi is, but she's not a big box office draw. There's no Japanese actress that is super, super popular in Hollywood. So they just kind of went, okay, so let's just cast somebody who's recognizable, even if she's white. We'll cast Scarlett Johansson, who is the highest paid actress out there, and she'll get butts in the seats. So the reason to cast her in the role is completely for a money standard. It's a business decision to cast her in the role. So I get it. I don't think it's a good reason, but I get it. Outside of that, she is distracting in this movie. Having her in this movie, and a lot of the other side characters just live in this Japanese style world, is distracting. And the big thing that kills it is that there is a twist near the end of the movie involving Scarlett Johansson's character that I won't say, but it brings her casting into even more question than it did when they first announced it. It's almost like you want to go to the filmmakers and say, do you even know what Japanese people look like? And it also doesn't help that the real name of Scarlett Johansson's character is Motoko Kusanagi. Do you know any white people with that Japanese of a name? So, yeah, it's really distracting having her in the lead role. But other than that, this is probably the best adaptation, American adaptation of a Japanese anime when it comes to movies. It's not all that great, and the casting of Scarlett Johansson and having that twist at the end is incredibly distracting, and it will probably frustrate some people. It frustrated me. So I'm kind of at crossroads here, because my feelings for this are similar to Beauty and the Beast, where the stuff that's good is really good. The visuals and audio is excellent, and Takeshi Kitano is really good for the little bit that he's in, but there are just some other aspects that are just so mediocre that's really hard to recommend. Let me say this: if you go into this movie just as a visual and audio spectacle, then you're really not going to be all that disappointed. I'd say it's definitely worth seeing in a matinee, but if I'm to be truthful to myself, watch it at your own risk. Sure, the visuals are outstanding, even if it's very reminiscent of Blade Runner, but the story isn't all that special. There's nothing about the movie that really wowed me, and Scarlett Johansson's casting is just... It's... Again, I understand why, but it's not a very good reason. So, yeah, just watch it at your own risk. If you feel like you have to see it, then go for it and make your own decision. But this is not a movie I feel like I need to rewatch or even own. And that's my review for Ghost in the Shell. And I hope you enjoyed this review. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on the movie, if and when you've seen it. And as always, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there is only one.